Welcome to the lunation situation. You are watching the fourth eclipse video of 2025. This chart is filled with geometry. There is so much going on in this chart. There is so much history related to this chart. There is so much sacred geometry connected to this eclipse. So it's going to be quite a dive. First of all, thank you for watching, and I would love if you subscribe, leave a comment below this video because it really helps to support these videos so that I can make more of them. Thank you. So September 21st, there is a critical solar eclipse occurring at 29 degrees of Virgo. This is the second lunation within 1 month in the sign of Virgo. This makes it a once in a blue moon as well. But more importantly, it is an eclipse. And that is something we all will notice. Eclipses lead astrology, and they occur 4 times a year, and they come in pairs. So we just had one 2 weeks prior to this, September 7th, and now September 21st, we find ourselves at the closing of this eclipse season of 2025. We will not have one for the next 6 months. 29 degrees in itself is a critical degree, often coming with massive turbulence, changes, potential for conflict, and real disruptions, as eclipses can do that as well. It is also about mastery, so really being the best at this thing, this eclipse, which is something that Virgo is very in tune with anyway. It wants to be the best. It wants everything to be, well, perfect. It wants to improve. It wants to organize and make the best of it. So you have this potential for mastery or completion, or because it's a solar eclipse, it's a beginning, a massive beginning as well. I will take you through really important dates, why you know this is not just a beginning in itself, but really related to some critical points, recent and a little bit back. So you can look, especially if you are interested in astrology, but also for your personal journey. What have you been going through? And so what is this eclipse bringing you? Well, first of all, you look at 29 degrees of Virgo in your chart. That house area is lit up because it's a solar eclipse. So the sun is beaming in that area. It's a new moon energy, so it's a massive beginning, but pair to massive endings. There is so much to say about this eclipse, so I can keep it brief and keep it, informed. A really important thing, other than the degree, 29 degrees is really important in astrology. It's also the day before the autumn equinox, which is known as, the autumn season, the fall season. This is a really important point too. So the autumn equinox is pending. The next day after this, we find the sun at 0 degrees of Libra, showing us that we're in the autumn season, and that's the equal day and light measurement, right? Most people may not know, but astrology is based on the seasons of the year, which is why we can also debunk a lot of talk about why astrology isn't accurate, why the signs and the constellations don't pair up. Actually, they always do pair up because it's based on the seasons of the year. We have 4, right? And so now we embark upon the autumn season. We have the winter season. We have the spring season and obviously summer. So the equinoxes are always the 0 degrees in cardinal signs. It's never in default. It's always correct because we follow the ecliptic, and the ecliptic shows us when the seasons are occurring. And in astrology, it's at the 0 point, the 0 degree of the cardinals. So this eclipse occurring just before the autumn equinox, or could we say during the autumn equinox transition, this is really relevant for the energy as well. We embark upon the fall, the downfall in a way, of the earth livelihood, right? So there's a decline, the leaves are falling, there is less fertility and fruitfulness in Mother Nature's. The rhythm becomes slower, we retreat more into our lives, right? And so it's a whole different rhythm, whole different topics. It becomes darker. After the autumn equinox, the day becomes shorter and the nights become longer. So we embark upon more darkness, and that is a metaphor for going more deeper into the unseen, really. That's something to know. So we're pending in the autumn equinox energy. There's a play of light and dark, which is always a theme in eclipses. So light and dark. Generally, a solar eclipse is light. It's the sun bringing, the new moon phase where there is fertility, there is fruitfulness, because there's a start of a journey of at least 6 months. With eclipses, it's generally longer. But of course, with a solar eclipse, there's something interesting going on, because, we see the moon moving in front of the sun. And so there is a literal play with light and dark during a solar eclipse. Because it's a new moon phase in essence, this is about a fresh incoming energy. This is things being eclipsed in, and anything that's blocking the new chapter will be removed, of course, as a part of the story as well. Always part of things being eclipsed in means also things might be eclipsed out, particularly in this one, because we have a very strong opposition to Saturn, the Reaper, often in traditional astrology related to death or decline or, karma, heavy lessons. It's about the dense material life. It's about achievement and success. So we're looking at leaders, we're looking at people in public, well known. Often with Saturn, you're talking male figures, elderly. So unfortunately, there seems to be a big eclipsing out of these kinds of people, or at least these kinds of people no longer being in authority, in rulership, in a known position. So part of this new chapter seems to be that we embark upon a period of a lot of new leadership. And for that, the old needs to go. So part of that's something we will definitely see with this eclipse. Now, the old often doesn't want to go very easily, so this might result into a struggle as it's in opposition. So we're being pulled, are we going into the new direction, or are we going to stick with what we know, the old? But no, because Saturn is just out of the 29 degrees of Pisces. It's at 28 degrees of Pisces, but it's still about endings, right? In Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac. So think about a lot of changes in authority and leadership, okay? The world is going to change visibly. It's not going to look the way it was. But again, for you personally, you look at 29 degrees of Virgo. Which house is that for you? Obviously, if you have anything around the end of Virgo, obviously, but also the end of Pisces, the end of Sagittarius, and the end of Gemini are affected strongly by this lunation. If you have anything at the end of Leo and at the end of Aries, you're gonna get a huge impulse from this solar eclipse, a huge push and momentum forward. You will really feel the energy of the solar eclipse. The other mutable signs will get more of a nudge and a kick in the butt and maybe some changes in direction because it's needed. Now, Virgo is something we have been talking about a lot because we just came out of a new moon in Virgo 4 weeks ago. This is why this one is a once in a blue moon, right? So the second new moon in 1 month. Virgo is the sixth sign of the zodiac, the sixth house in astrology. It's the second earth sign. It understands the material life. It knows how to change it, how to form it and mutate it into its desired outcome. So Virgo is very strategic, knows how to operate, knows how to organize, knows how to get things done and in order. It's very detail oriented. It won't miss a thing. And it strives for, the best. It strives for improvement. And so it's very, service oriented, right? It loves to help other people, especially those who really need help. In the sixth house, you're looking at work, daily activities, how you take care of your body, your health. So nutrition and, movement comes to mind, but also pets and animals and agriculture, nature, natural remedies. It loves to clean. It loves to have, a clean surface. It has to be in order. Everything has its place, and that's when you function better in everything, but definitely for a Virgo. So cleaning, ordering is something we might feel a lot. So wanting to clean your space, wanting to therefore then mentally clean, inside. Maybe you want to clean your body. Maybe you want to clean up the people you know in your life. Maybe you want to get rid of old things, old places, old attachments. Cleaning is very therapeutic. There's a reason why it's a thing for the Virgo energy. It's a release. It's processing what's going on, and it is an earth sign, but it's very in the mind. It is mentally focused because it's ruled by Mercury. So thoughts, communication, writing is important for Virgo as well because of its detail element. It won't miss a thing, right? So it's really important for that if you work in the communication field or you do something with that. Of course, hospitality, taking care of people or places or things. This is important for Virgo. It feels fulfilled. It feels of value when it can contribute. And this is a really good thing. Virgo is also actually ruled by Chiron, an asteroid, the wounded healer of really taking your pain into purpose and your pain into medicine. The Chiron and Virgo connection brings health and wellness and natural remedies, herbalism and stuff, stronger up, and also about healing the body-mind connection. Now there's a lot going on in the chart, right? So first of all, the solar eclipse of Virgo is opposite two important geometrical patterns. It's right opposite the apex, the point of the yod. It's right opposite the point of the kite as well. So opposite the solar eclipse, we find the point of yod and the point of a kite. And this really points to a huge divine mission that comes in on the Pisces and potentially beginning of Aries side in all of our charts. And speaking of, how astrology is about seasons, Now, the 0 point in Aries is the most important because that's where everything in astrology begins. That's when life begins because that's springtime. The beginning of life, life is born, the spark of life occurs at 0 degrees of Aries. And that's where we find Neptune. Now, Saturn was there too, quite recently, but left the Aries sign into Pisces. Now, they will both move back to this critical, important 0 degrees of Aries, the spring equinox, at the beginning of 2026. I've been talking about this a lot, that the Aries conjunction of Saturn and Neptune is going to bring us a whole new era, okay? A whole new lifetime, we could say. And is it a coincidence that there is a solar eclipse right on the opposite side of that? No, it's not. But it's not the apex of that important divine mission. It's at the opposite side of it. Now, this is important. So it's at the side of where the south node is at in Virgo as well, right? So oddly enough, there is a requirement to release a lot of the Virgo energies, even if it's a solar eclipse. And that means we need to let go of control. We need to let go of the idea that we need to improve things. What if everything is perfect? What if the beauty of seeing details is a gift, but not an invitation for change? Cleaning is great, but the need for order shouldn't take over your life. The need to help others, to be of service, is wonderful, but is it at a cost? And are you losing your own needs out of sight? We could then say that there is a new beginning of the Virgo energy. We're changing that energy as well with this eclipse. So Saturn being at the opposite side reminds us that boundaries are the most important at this moment. Saying no and trusting endings, trusting divine guidance, and surrender instead of the control that Virgo loves is the path forward. So we need to master the Virgo energy in the best way, that it isn't detrimental for ourselves, that it isn't detrimental for society. And I would almost think that we're invited to lean towards more of the Chiron Virgo aspect, which is much more respect for nature, working with nature, looking at natural remedies, strong body-mind connection, honoring your body. If there's anything to improve, it's just that, the body-mind connection. And then we flip it over to the Pisces energy, where we're required to trust what that body-mind connection tells us, what it needs. And even if that goes against societal expectations or what is the norm, it's also an invite to bring more faith and belief into your daily life, into your habits. So therefore, not just improving the body-mind connection, but also improving your connection to the divine and to yourself being part of the divine, and thus being divine yourself. And now, how does that change your connection to Mother Nature? How does that impact your daily life? Well, a lot, if you bring in the consequences. And I think that's only the doing part. Just more nature, more body-mind connection, more healing, more respect, more honor. You don't need to go out of your way to help people. But if you do the smallest things, the daily little steps, that goes such a long way. And that's the only requirement. Of course you're going to help people. Of course you want to be of service. Of course you want to contribute to life here on earth, to the people, to animals, to nature. Even the service can be more healthy, more balanced. And I think the mastery part of the 29-degree point points to purity. And so purity in the body, purity in the mind. Think about how often people think negatively about themselves, talk negatively to themselves, or about the world. Oh, look at what the world has become. Look at the state we're in. All these negative thoughts, all this impurity poisons everything else. We really want to be mindful of our thoughts, of our words, of our actions, of course, and really of how you take care of yourself, because that's the example for everything else. So we are called more than ever, more than anything else, to bring more purity in our beingness. And so I think we can ask ourselves, how can I think more purely? How can I speak more purely? Or in other words, if that is uncomfortable or you don't understand what that means, how can I bring more kindness, more sweetness, more heart, more love, more unconditionality? A pure mind, a pure body results in purer outcomes, right? Purer experiences. And I think it's interesting that it's also conjunct the super galactic center, which is the massive black hole in our neighboring galaxy, Andromeda. So, an Andromeda is about higher love, divine partnership, and just a higher, frequency of love. And it ties back into the purity element. So more love, more purity, higher frequency, higher vibrations. And that's how we lift up from the density that we have known. And we will experience, it sounds unreal, but this is really, really real. So if you know quantum science, you know that everything is energy. Everything vibrates at a certain frequency, okay? So there are certain waves that affects density, that affects many, many things. And we have had a lot of connections with the super galactic center, which I will point back to why this is also a historic event. Not just a simple new moon solar eclipse. And in fact, by degree, it's actually more strongly squaring our black hole in our galaxy called the Milky Way. And that massive black hole is called the Galactic Center. And that's at 27 degrees of Sagittarius. This solar eclipse occurs at 29 degrees of Virgo. That is a sharp square to the galactic center, our own black hole. The black holes are considered to be massive consciousness, primordial feminine energies, divine feminine, so to speak. A black hole is similar to a womb energy. That's why it's black. And also, actually, a new moon is a womb kind of energy, the birth, right? And so in that darkness, new life starts in black holes and in new moons and under Earth, right? So the dark represents the feminine, represents fertility. If this solar eclipse is conjunct the super galactic center, which is our neighboring galaxy, which is more advanced, higher frequency, more love, right? So we're invited for that, which in other words is more purity, more divinity. But then we're squaring our own little center. And so I think there's a push with this eclipse to not only work with what's coming in from the supergalactic center, but also to actually change kind of the vibration of our own galaxy. So it's like a cosmic thing. Now, if you know quantum, that everything is energy, quantum is actually part of a really ancient science, and that's called Hermetism. Hermes is Mercury and rules over this solar eclipse. So we have a huge connection with Hermetism at this moment as well. And what does Hermes say? The emerald tablets, as above, so below. That's quantum. So everything is interconnected, everything affects the other. So incoming energies of unconditional love, of partnership through the supergalactic center is great, but also makes us force to change. And the whole galactic center, that the whole galaxy that we live in, the Milky Way. So we're all upgrading each other. Like I said, there's a divine mission to Saturn and Neptune because it's the point of the odd, it's the point of the long and ongoing kite formation as well. This means that Neptune and Saturn are also squaring the galactic center of our galaxy, the Milky Way. So it means actually it's a T-square to the galactic center. Because it's hugely cosmic, this is all up for debate. I don't know what exactly is the meaning of this, right? But I do know the opposition of Saturn is about boundaries. It's about saying, no, I had it. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to stick up for myself. I'm going to say, I'm not going to tolerate everything. I'm going to know when, I've reached a limit. And I'm not going to take on things that are too heavy or isn't something that I can do anymore or don't want to do, okay? And because Saturn is ruling over Capricorn, it's about the generational stuff as well. It's about the ancestral as well. So saying no to that, of not taking on karma anymore, of not taking on the ancestral weight or, whatever comes from the ancestral line, saying no to that and the boundaries towards that, towards the hardcore family lineage, that is, I think, very impactful. And so when we say no to that here on little Earth, it has a ripple effect on everything in the cosmos. And that changes, the vibration of the galactic center and, potentially even the supergalactic center, but it's more advanced. So I don't know if it needs our vibration at that, frequency, but it can really help us. And that's probably why this supergalactic center is on this, or this eclipse is on the supergalactic center, because it can help us to heal, to process. Well, remember that Virgo is about digestion, right? It's about metabolizing, processing, not just your food or thoughts, but every experience. And because it's also ruled by Chiron, Virgo, it's about processing your wounds, your trauma, your triggers. And so deep healing, right? And the healing opens the path to love and purity of the supergalactic center. So I think we're just before we embark upon that new era at the beginning of 2026, we're receiving a lot of impulses of love, of higher dimensional aspects that helps us to heal more, help us to live more purely, more with serenity and calmness, right? It's mastering also the body and mind, and therefore mastering your experience, not in the way of control, but in the way of understanding and allowing. I mean, not to be confused, because the boundaries, the limits, the saying no of Saturn sounds like it's an opposition, right? It is an opposition, but with allowing, I just mean the divine, allowing the divine and not controlling um, as an individual, right? Stepping out of your own way. That's basically it. So making sure that your life flows again. And, you allow the inner guidance, the intuition to move you, not you mentally, what is best? Well, how should I do it? And like strategy. That was life on Earth for a very long time. But I think that is over. As you can see, this is a very interesting pattern, and it makes me think of, I don't know, a bit of like a diamond shape. There is that kite, that thing that flies off towards Saturn and Neptune. But then because, the base of a kite is always made of a grand trine, in this case, dominantly an air trine because of Pluto and Uranus, but at the bottom of the kite is an earth sign, this solar eclipse. But what we also see is that same Pluto and Uranus is also squaring Venus and Mars, which is creating a sharper, a more solid base in this geometry that, yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think that it looks like? What kind of, what kind of pattern or topic does this make you think of? What does it remind you of? What does it look like to you? To me, it looks like a gem or a diamond, even though a diamond can also have a point downwards, right? In this case, it's more, it's flat. um, yeah, other than that, I don't know what it looks like. But the gem part would make sense because, the top is made of a yacht and a kite, which is magical, which is divine mission, right? When we look deeper at that kite formation, we can look back towards history. Now, this is the fourth time in recent years that we have this similar kite. Okay, this one, of course, September 21st of this year. We also had a kite going back, this is the fourth, right, of a kite formation. So the first kite formation we had September 15th of 2023. That's 2 years ago. And of course, this is related to how Neptune moves. And so Neptune has been at the end of Pisces for a while, right? So that's what has been creating this kite because of, its sextile to Pluto, its sextile to Uranus that has been going on for almost equally this long. And so if anything came on the opposite side of Neptune in Virgo, we have this kite. And so that occurred, like I said, 2 years ago. And then we had the second kite, March 14th of 2024. And then we had the third kite, September 18th, 2024, which was a year ago. So we had every September, we had this kite, and then one last year in March as well. So this means that there has been a lot of pressure to work towards the end of Pisces. So if you have particularly anything at the end decan between 20 and 20 and 29 degrees of Pisces. This, you have been under the Kite experience for 2 years. So have you felt this pressure at the end of Pisces in your chart? So you can also look at the house of where you've been pushed for 2 years to work towards, to change, and feel a divine guidance, a divine nudge and support. And also where you may have felt strong endings, grief, a lot of emotions, and a strong demand for surrender, of really needing to let go of control. And things may have been removed for you, and things may have been kind of out of control, because that's the test of surrender, right? Of trust. And have you also advanced in that divine connection? Have you done more, habits and routines to improve, to listen more to your intuition? Because that's what we all have been really working on at the end of Pisces, right? We also notice in the chart a very important point, and that is Mars being at 29 degrees of Libra. This is again a huge crisis point because Mars is in itself about conflict. At the end of Libra, it indicates that there could be a lot of diplomatic conflicts, diplomatic issues, maybe stuff regarding law and order, justice or not, and perhaps about borders and treaties, and things not cooperating well. And you could experience this in your own life as well. Mars at a critical point is always something to watch out for, especially in this lunation, since it squares Pluto. Even though they are out of sign, which is a technicality, it does indicate a bit of a tough time, struggles, conflicts, arguments we can't get out of the way of. The ruler of Virgo, Chiron, is at 26 degrees and opposing Mars. So this could potentially indicate vitality and health issues, as Mars is also about the body, and Chiron is about health and healing and natural healing methods. Also a huge trigger for wounds and traumas. But the T-square towards Pluto, in essence, of this Chiron and Mars, shows that we need to overcome by a strong will in the mind, by more information and intelligence, almost being less emotional about it. From a higher consciousness perspective, you can really move on from it now. Be more detached about your experiences and your triggers. Look at it more like, I know what it's telling me now. So not be triggered to react and keep that emotional pattern going. So in potential, it is an invitation again for healing with the Pluto, also deeply healing. But in the collective, I think this can lead to a lot of hurt, a lot of issues, a lot of struggles, a lot of, power struggles for dominance. But Mars at 29 degrees of Libra could also be a mastery point for you, and that maybe you can use the Libra qualities of more charm, kindness, strategy, of intelligence, and having a way with words and knowing how to get your point across and basically get what you want, without arguments, without force, but with intelligence. So kind of using kindness to get what you want. And also a strong demand for justice. That's something we can master as well. Or justice over the physical aspect of life, about DNA perhaps. It is interesting that the other ruler, the more known ruler, Mercury, is at 6 degrees of Libra, and thus in a grand air trine with this Pluto, but also with Uranus. And this reminds me of, A Beautiful Mind, the title of that movie. But here we embark upon a new mind of great intelligence, a lot of knowledge and wisdom that can really benefit us. And that new mind is, of course, a higher mind. Looking at it from a higher perspective and understanding who you are and how things play around, what is really going on. Now, this solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Virgo is something that we have had prior as well. Literally the 29 degrees of Virgo. So we had a solar eclipse back in 2015, March of that year. So look back to what were the themes for you in 2015, especially around the spring. Did you embark upon a new journey because it's a solar eclipse? Did you have a huge work opportunity? So think about the topics of 2015 because you're literally working with them again this year. But we can go even further back if you remember. We also had a solar eclipse again. So all of these three were solar eclipses. All of them three were at 29 degrees of Virgo. So we also had one September 22nd of 2006, which is 19 years ago, okay? September 22nd of 2006. Do you remember the significance of that year? Now remember that solar eclipses can at least work for 3 to 6 months strongly. So take that into consideration with these months of that year of 2015, 2006, and of course this year, 2025. So what are you ready to begin massively? Where are you ready to say no so that new can begin? I wish you an exciting solar eclipse. Be prepared for the endings and let's sail forward. Take great care. Bye.